Basic Brewing Radio is sponsored in part by the American Homebrewers Association. Up your IPA game with homebrewing techniques, craft beer clone recipes, and a free book from the American Homebrewers Association. Push your brews to the limits with Brewing Eclectic IPA by Dick Cantwell. Or dive into science and history with IPA, brewing techniques, recipes, and the evolution of India Pale Ale by Mitch Steele. Join for 1 year and receive your choice from 60 different brewing books. Visit homebrewersassociation.org/basic brewing for offer details. homebrewersassociation.org/basic brewing. Welcome to Basic Brewing Radio for Thursday, May 18th, 2023. I'm James Spencer. Here at Basic Brewing Radio, we're all about home brewing. This week, Steve Wilkes and I head to Chicago, Illinois to meet up with longtime listener Greg McGill from Brewocracy in Hamilton, New Zealand, to taste the legendary Chicago hot dog beer from homebrewer Ken Kazmersky and his son Brian. We'll sample a short vertical tasting and another more traditional homebrew from the father-son team. If you want to support us financially, check out patreon.com/basicbrewing, and many thanks to everybody who was helping out in that way. If you go to patreon.com/basicbrewing, you can see a long list of stuff that you can access if you sign up as a supporter. Financial supporters will see an early release this week of the next video episode. It's the Dark Mild recipe that Matt Giovanisi of Brew Cabin and I came up with on this show. Matt sent Steve and me bottles of the mild along with a video postcard of how the beer came together on his fancy gear. It's a really delicious beer, and I want to try that recipe myself. Let's take a very quick look into the mailbag with a note from Andy from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. Andy writes, in the recent episode of Basic Brewing Radio, you read a message from a fellow Saskatchewanian. I blew it. Let me try that again. You read a message from a fellow Saskatchewanian. Andy says a few comments. Our local craft maltster, Maker's Malt, is fantastic. I loved the strange brew reference at the end.
Jeez, I gotta take a leak so bad I can taste it.
Good effort on, Andy says, good effort on pronouncing Saskatchewan. Good day, eh? Well, good day, Andy. I not only did I have to say Saskatchewan again in reading your letter this time, but you made me say Saskatchewanian too, and I blew it. I'm glad you enjoyed the little Bob and Doug Easter egg at the end of the episode. I love that movie. It's great. I was a Bob and Doug freak in high school. In that movie, there is, if you pay attention, there's a brief cameo of cartoon voiceover legend Mel Blanc in that movie. Susan and I are heading to Tulsa this week to see They Might Be Giants at Kane's Ballroom. So excited, I had to tell you. It's not related to anything in the world, but we bought the tickets before the pandemic, and the show's been rescheduled twice since then, so we're very excited to finally see the Johns in person. We're also excited because we get to see our good friends Desiree and Dave at High Gravity in Tulsa. Our friends and sponsors Desiree and Dave of HighGravityBrew.com have a couple of special offers just for you, listeners of Basic Brewing Radio. They've done a refresh of HighGravityBrew.com, and they want your help in running the new site through its paces. So, to encourage you, from now until the end of May, you can get 15% off ingredients by using the code BasicBrewing15. That's all one word, BasicBrewing15, on HighGravityBrew.com. And just for listeners of this show, you can still save $100 off WordHog controllers when you buy a turnkey WordHog electric system with the code EBC100BB. That's $25 more than the usual code. They're extending that offer just for you. That's $25 more. So try out the even easier to use build your own beer feature on HighGravityBrew.com and use the code BasicBrewing15, all one word, to save 15% this month on ingredients and help test out the new site. I ordered ingredients for the Texas table beer that Chris Colby and I formulated, and it's a breeze. Use the code EBC100BB to save $100 on a Warthog controller when you buy a Warthog turnkey system until the end of May as well. That's at the new and improved highdgravitybrew.com. That's highdgravitybrew.com. Okay, this interview was all about just having fun. And we did. We recorded the show after we did a great interview with Doug Hurst of Metropolitan Brewing. You'll hear that next week. And before that, Steve and I had been hanging out with Greg and Alex from New Zealand. So it might sound a bit like I've been at club night for a few hours between me talking loud and the loud environment, but there's actual good tips on brewing a weird and delicious beer such as this Chicago hot dog beer. And besides that, I think it's just a boatload of fun. Ken Kazmersky, welcome back to Basic Brewing Radio.
It's great to be with you again.
Who we got with me to my left?
We have Brian Kazmersky. He's my oldest son and my brew partner.
And we met you in Pittsburgh, right?
You did, and it was fantastic.
Well, you're welcome. and who have we got with you across the way?
Nancy Fanta. She runs the homebrew shop. She's my mentor. She's the person who taught me how to brew.
Oh, well, Nancy, tell us about your homebrew shop.
Its name is What's Brewing Supply. It's located in Palatine, which is about a 40-minute drive from the city here. It's a full-service homebrew shop. I love it.
Well, welcome, Nancy. And we got one of the usual crew, Steve Wilkes.
Hi, James. I'm always available.
And we got Greg McGill all the way up from New Zealand. And Greg, the owner and brewer at Brewocracy, you are the reason that we are all sitting at this table.
Yeah, it's my fault. Sorry about that, but I love a Chicago dog and I love a good beer. So.
And Doug Hurst, you've got roped back into this. We had a conversation dedicated to you because we're here at Metropolitan Brewing, a lager brewery. But you're about to taste a hot dog beer. You're a traditionalist as far as your brewing is concerned here professionally. What are you anticipating?
Oh, I'm anticipating a beer that will be very different from what we make and probably quite interesting and creative.
You're a diplomat. All right, well, everybody, we have been poured a sample. What vintage is this?
This was brewed about a month and a half ago, so it's a 2023 vintage.
All right, well, cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
So happy to be here in Chicago. What do you say? Do you say Prost with a hot dog beer? Cheers?
Anything you want to say.
You say go Cubs go.
Just don't say ketchup.
Oh! Okay, so tell us about this beer.
Okay, about 6 years ago, another brewer that I knew said, why don't you try making a hot dog beer? And I says, I don't know about that. And they says, give it a try. And I says, okay, I'll give it a try. I first brought the idea to Brian, and he backed off. And then I went to Nancy's shop, and I says, I want to try a hot dog beer. And she says, are you crazy? And then I says, well, I'm coming up with this recipe. Let me give it a try. So I made the beer, and to my surprise, I said, it tasted like a hot dog. Brian was pleased with it. I took it over by Nancy's shop, gave her a sample, and she was impressed with it too. And the first thing she says is, dude, you got to take it to the Crystal Lake Beer Club. And I go, okay, I'm not a member. She says, no, just go see what they think. She's a member, and she brought me in as a guest. Little did I know that I'm supposed to bring more than one bottle. I brought one bottle of beer, and they all went crazy over it, and they said, hey, there's a brew competition, Spooky Brew. Why don't you enter Spooky Brew? I entered it. We got good ratings on it, and I was very pleased with it. And then Nancy says, I have an opportunity at the ballpark to pour this for a brew fest. And at that point in time, I was unavailable, so I gave her the recipe. She brewed it 3 times at the and served it at the ballpark. And then I became available, and she says, why don't you pour? So I poured by myself 1 year, and Brian poured with me the last year. And it is amazing the way the people go nuts over it, because it doesn't. I can't believe a gimmick can cause a chaos like this. I was mentioning a little bit before that at Brewfest about 3 years ago, we were right across from Goose Island. And the guy that was pouring from Goose Island came up to me, gave me a keychain, and he says, thank you for the entertainment. And I go, what are you talking about? He says, we have bets going on. And then I said, okay, what are you talking about? He says, when people get their beer, it's either smell or yell. They smell it and they start calling people over, hey, try this beer. Or they'll just yell and put it under other people's nose and say, smell this. So I enjoy the chaos as much as I enjoy making the beer.
Well, I just tasted mine. Mine's almost gone. I need some more. Brian, you need to pour me some more. Everybody's putting everybody's, except for Doug. Doug's not asking for more. Nancy, I'm as a homebrew shop owner, and you're sitting next to a former homebrew shop owner, I'm sure that you get wacky ideas for beers all the time. When Ken came to you and said, I brewed this hot dog beer, what were you thinking?
Oh, I thought it was gross. I said it was totally gross. But when you bring it in, I'll try it because I drink everything and anything. So, I tried it, and I was actually very pleasantly surprised. He nailed it. He nailed it perfectly, so it was fun.
Okay, so Doug, since you may have to cut and run here, you got a brewery to run. Should I ask Doug what he thinks of the beer?
Yeah, and I don't get offended because I know people either love it or they say this is the worst swill I've ever had.
Doug, what do you think?
Well, it's definitely not the worst swill I've ever had. When I think to me, this is a Chicago dog. It's not just any hot dog. This is a Chicago dog. I think you need to make that differential clear. A Chicago dog is a hot dog with lots of stuff on it. Among those, sport peppers, lettuce, tomato, celery salt, pickle, and mustard. And I'm actually picking up pretty much every one of those ingredients in this beer. There's even a little tinge of hot pepper flavor, a little heat. So, yeah, it's a hot dog beer.
And the bun is there too. That's what's amazing.
So Doug, are you offended by this? What's your reaction to this beer? I mean, I just want to get your honest reaction.
My honest reaction, it's really interesting and creative, and I would drink half a glass of it and enjoy it. It's fun to be creative with beer, and you can do lots of cool stuff, and this is one of them.
Yeah, this is really good beer. Steve, you were extremely nervous because at HomebrewCon you said that this was your favorite beer of the whole HomebrewCon. I liked it, but I don't know that there was a ghost pepper beer that was my favorite. Does it stand up to your memory?
It definitely does. Okay, so the thing that I remember the most, or the comparison that I remember, is I think that this iteration of it is a little spicier. It's a little hotter. There's a little more heat in it. than I remember. Of course, I may or may not have had a beer or two the night of HomebrewCon.
Well, you've had a couple today too.
Well, that's true. But this seems a little spicier. But I agree that I pick up that pepper. I pick up. It's a Chicago dog. You're absolutely right. It's not a hot dog. Like we have hot dogs. We put mustard on them. That's it.
I put mayonnaise on my hot dog.
Well, you're weird. But this.
Okay, Brian, settle down.
But to be able to, and I really want to get into the nuts and bolts of this eventually about how he made it. But to be able to pick up all those flavors and to carry them through individually, there's not just a mush of kind of weird hot dog water flavors. You really do taste the celery salt. You taste the little green pepper on the top or yellow pepper on the top. You taste a little, you just taste you taste the hot dog. You taste the bun. It's a stunning achievement of what I will still call a novelty beer. It's not a traditional beer. It's never going to fit in anybody's category. But it's stunning how good this beer is. I will admit, I was nervous that maybe I was just drunk the night of the thing. It's like, okay, maybe, but this holds up. And I do remember my father when I was a little boy. I remember my dad. He kept cans of sauerkraut juice around the house, and he would pour a little sauerkraut juice in his beer, in his Budweiser. So he'd pour a little sauerkraut, and this goes there. It's that same kind of little savoriness that you don't expect in beer, and yet it's so satisfying. It's so wonderful. Would I drink pint after pint after pint of this night after night? Probably not. And I mean that in a good way. But if I'm going to throw a big brat fest and I'm going to cook brats and onions, and I'm going to be serving this beer. I'm serious. I want the recipe before we're done.
Is this going to be a beer that you're going to serve at your son's wedding in October?
2 kegs.
Oh. Okay, so the question is...
Who the hell puts mayonnaise on a hot dog?
Yeah, that is the question.
Yeah, I may be leaving tonight. I may not be let into the ballpark brewfest tomorrow. But I love mayonnaise and everything.
No, we're all inclusive.
So, Greg, you haven't traveled all the way from New Zealand just to have the hot dog beer, but as a stop on your tour of the United States to sample the hot dog beer. As a certified beer judge and just coming off the World Beer Cup judging, what do you think about this beer?
It's never mind the judging stuff. I just want to speak as a certified Chicago hot dog fan. I love it. I just love it. I just said to Ken before we started recording, the only thing I can't taste is the nuclear green relish, and that's only because it's visual.
I do taste relish, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I do. That's what I mean. I just can't taste the color. I'm not synesthesiac yet. Is that the word? Yeah. But yeah, I'm with Steve. I would drink kegs of this. It's non-traditional. I absolutely love it. And I hope I can work with Ken and that we can get the ingredients we need to actually brew this commercially in New Zealand if he's down with it. I want to make this.
How crazy would that be to have your hot dog beer brewed in New Zealand?
Oh, I would love it. I would love to get down to New Zealand. I've never been there. I heard it is one of the most beautiful places. It's like paradise. Oh, okay.
Greg says not where he lives.
But it would be an honor to have them pour my beer in New Zealand. Well, at that point, it would be Greg's beer.
We'll put your name on it. We'll put your name on it, man.
I love it.
So is there a similar New Zealand dish or treat or whatever that you could put a twist on it, or would you just serve it like that?
I would serve it exactly like this. If there's nothing that tastes like that in New Zealand, nobody will know what to expect, so I'll have to do some education. But I think if anyone doesn't like that, then they just may not like the heat from the peppers. That might be the only thing they could object to, because that is just a cool beer.
Doug, do we have to let you go?
Yeah, I do need to head out here in just a minute. I will finalize my statement by saying this is really good experimental beer and total success. And as much as I make lagers with simple ingredients and all that, I have always loved making pepper beer every once in a while. And there's a little pepper in this. And so I'm not a total stranger to wacky stuff.
Well, Doug, we appreciate your joining us, and and you're going to get a whole bottle to go, or if this is the earlier vintage.
This is an earlier vintage. It should not be as peppery. Since we're dealing with agricultural products, I don't get the same taste from beer to beer to beer. And I always put the same amount of sport peppers in, but this one came up a lot more, and I got the funny feeling it's because my onions, while I put the poundage in that I was supposed to, weren't as strong probably, so it let the peppers take over. So I'm a little bit worried about that. Open it with with caution because it's a year old. It might gush. But give that a try and see what you think of that one.
Very good. Thank you. I'll take this to the rest of the brew team, and we'll try it. Yeah.
Thank you, Doug.
Thanks. Thank you. Very nice to be here. Nice to have you all here. Please stick around and have some more beers.
Oh yes, we shall.
Very exciting news from our friends and sponsors at Imperial Yeast about their next featured hybrid yeast strain, I-10 Mangostini. Here's what Eben at Imperial says. Eben says, our brewing scientists developed this new Saccharomyces cerevisiae strain by directing 2 unique strains through their idle sexual cycle via fungal sporulation, isolating, resulting in a hybrid that is an efficient and highly flavorful agent for fermentation. You'll remember Dr. Matt Winans talking about this this sort of natural hybridization process that they're using last year on this show. Mangostini was developed for its excellent attenuation, prompt reduction of diacetyl, and versatility, brewing a wide variety of ales and IPAs. It boasts a robust flavor profile of, get this, ripe tropical fruit, strawberry, and lychee that beautifully complements big hop additions. I-10 Mangostini will be available for purchase Friday, May 26th, with shipping starting the week of June 5th, so get ready. It's worth noting, Eben says, that this strain is not a GMO product. For myself, I'm very excited to get my hands on I-10 Mangostini to brew at least one deliciously hoppy beer for the summertime. Ask your local homebrew store to stock up on I-10 Mangostini from Imperial when it comes out on May 26th. And check out all the fun and deliciously dependable strains on imperialyeast.com. That's imperialyeast.com.
So Brian,
Yes, sir.
is this in line with something your dad would do?
And my dad, yes, for sure.
So talk about. Are there any other wacky things that has come out of the brew house other than the hot dog beer?
We haven't done anything as crazy as this one. We've brewed a couple beers with stuff we can get. We've got a mulberry beer that we might pour with you guys in a little bit here. I like making beers with local ingredients, stuff we can farm from friends. But out of the box, this is the most extreme we've done.
Do you think we ought to try the earlier vintage?
If you want to, I've got one more bottle. Let's give it a crack.
Is this the one that we had?
Yes, this is the one that you had in Pittsburgh.
Okay, I've got I'm a home brewer. I've got
You've got a church key.
Well, it's I don't know whose advertising it has on it, but from a previous Hopsteiner.
Okay.
Would you do the honors? And I'll stand over here in case.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
Oh, all right. All right, so this is... Whoa! Pour it, Ken! Okay, so this is a previous... So this is the actual beer that Steve and I tasted.
Right.
The actual vintage. So we get to see how it ages. We get a
Yeah.
vertical tasting of the hot dog beer. So talk about the recipe while we're pouring around.
Oh, okay. So basically, I started out with like a blonde ale, and it is regular pale malt, aromatic malt, and biscuit malt. And for bittering, I used Magnum. And then at the 15-minute mark, I put in Willamette. And after the beer has fermented, I go into secondary, and in secondary, I take and get all my ingredients chopped up, and then I put them in a muslin bag and put it in a freezer bag, and I freeze it. And by freezing it, I am hoping to get any pathogens off of the tomatoes and the onions. And I also take and found out that the relish and everything breaks down a little bit by being frozen. So then I take and add all of these ingredients, which consist of, you have to have the Vienna neon green relish and Vienna sport peppers. I do add sauerkraut, as Steve was talking about, and the reason the sauerkraut went in is because my wife watches cooking shows, and somebody was making a stew, and they said that while sauerkraut might not add a sauerkraut flavor, it acts as a I don't want to say emulsifier, but it brings everything together better. So I said, why not? And I tried it with the first batch. It seemed to have worked, so I keep it in there. There's also dill pickles in there, beefsteak tomatoes, celery seed, Vidalia onions, celery salt, poppy seed, and mustard. Everything that you would find on a Chicago-style hot dog. It sits on that for 1 week, and then we're ready to keg.
Wow. So do you see some more active fermentation? Because I'm assuming, like, especially with the Vidalia onions, there's more sugar.
I do get some activity on the airlock on the secondary fermentation, but it's not really extreme. At the very first time I tried it, I was afraid of it, but it took off, and it fermented out in 7 days in secondary, and we gave it a taste, and we go, okay. And all of the beers that I have made, hot dog beers, previous to this one, have always been bottle conditioned. So this is the first one that I ever kegged. And I don't know if the bottle conditioning has anything to do with the flavor for the peppers, because you get a little bit more pepper. Now, on this one, are you getting less pepper?
I think the subtleties of the flavors have faded over time, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. What I really noticed was that in the fresher version of this, so this year's version, all the flavors were crisp and distinguishable. So I could really say that's celery salt, that's relish, that's onion, that's sauerkraut. I mean, they were all there. The bun was there. In this one, the flavors are there. It's still a good beer. It's still perfectly drinkable. So I don't mean it negatively, other than it's just not as fresh and crisp. And so, it's not as good a beer. I mean, so it's one of those beers like kind of like a hot bomb, where it's dependent on really fresh hot flavors. If you let that beer sit for month after month, it's just not as good. It doesn't mean the beer isn't properly brewed, but it should be drunk fresh and crisp and in front of a ball game.
So Nancy, what were your biggest challenges in brewing this beer?
Well, one of the things is all of those things in secondary actually takes a lot of room. So he has to go into a bigger bucket with it, and then his yield is not nearly as much in there. The funny thing is when you're talking about these, comparing last year to this year, and you'll notice it tomorrow, there's fans that come to this beer fest, and they'll actually go, I had last year's beer. That had more sauerkraut. I have this year's beer. It has more mustard. They absolutely remember exactly what it tasted like the year before. And so for like 5 or 6, they're basically doing verticals, from their memory on this stuff. It's fantastic.
That's amazing. And we're talking about the Ballpark Brew Fest, which we're going to be at. Lord willing and the creek don't rise, we're going to be there tomorrow. And so we'll actually get to talk to some people. Maybe we'll get some fans of the beer.
Nancy did warn me on the first time that I went to the ballpark. I went with an employee of hers because Nancy couldn't make it. And she says, Ken, you got to get it set up early because some of the beer vendors will be standing in line waiting for you to crack that keg. And I says, Nancy, don't pull my leg. I got there, they were in line waiting.
I have to ask, so this is a hot dog beer. Are we talking Milwaukee, St. Louis, or Chicago?
Chicago, definitely Chicago.
That was what we call a softball question.
Yes.
So Greg, did you get the earlier vintage of the? So what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, no offense, Ken. It's obviously still a really well-made beer, but I feel like the oxidation's taken over. The honey note is coming up just from the malt, getting a bit tired. I would drink the first version all day. I'd try that as out of interest rather than I'll have some more of that, if you know what I mean. But that's any beer. Like I don't think I'd have a beer that I'd put in bottles that would last a year and still be great. You know, that's just how it is.
So Greg, as a certified beer judge and a judge in the World Beer Cup competition, is the first hot dog beer that you tried, this year's vintage, is the best hot dog beer that you've ever had in your life?
It's certainly the best hot dog beer I've ever had today. No, it absolutely is. I've never, obviously, asking the question, I've never had another one, but it might be the best experimental beer I've ever had in my life. So, and I've had to judge them, and some of them are hard work. So.
I'm still blown away by it. I agree with you. It's like, who comes up with this? Who thinks of this? And clearly we know who does now. But, I have nothing more to add. I just want to go to a ball game. I want to eat some pretzels. I want to eat some hot dogs. I want to drink this beer again.
So we have a bonus beer. We have Ken's mulberry beer, right?
Yes.
What do we got here?
Okay, you have our mulberry stout. Basically, it is an imperial stout. It's 11.5%, and it's basically a regular Russian imperial stout that we added mulberries that Brian was able to source, and vanilla beans.
And there was graham crackers in the mash.
Oh, that was a trick that we learned in Pittsburgh. People are using graham cracker extract to give a crust flavor to their beers.
Now, we were trying to make, as you call it, a gloppy beer, but it is not as gloppy as I think you would say it. It's not that bad.
That's really good. You get the base beer for sure. You get that graham cracker as well, but then there's a berry flavor on top of it that is really complimentary and balanced and drinkable, to use two of my keywords.
I get some coffee. I get the fruit. I get some spice. I actually get a little black pepper. Maybe that's just another word for spice. So I just get a little bit of that heat on the back end. It's thick, it's chewy, it's delicious, it's dessert. It's a perfect beer to follow the hot dog beer. I mean, seriously. It's the beer you would have at the end of the night. If I still smoke cigars, I might light one up.
What do you think, Nancy?
Oh, it's very good. It's definitely a barrel-aged type beer. That Munich malt in there gives it a huge breadiness. And then that fruit actually acts as a really nice background. And the vanilla always accents chocolate malt, so you actually think you're eating chocolate. That's a really good reason to put vanilla in your stouts.
Yeah, that's a good point. Even good milk chocolate has vanilla in it to boost those flavors.
Yeah, I don't think it needs any more glop. No, it's perfect. The balance is great. I don't know what mulberries taste like. I've never had one in my life. But I'm getting a sort of what I describe as a rounded, slightly tannic fruit character. I don't know if that's it. The graham cracker, it's there as I breathe out. I get this lovely crackery note for me. Another really well-made beer, man. It's just, you're good at this.
again, somebody might say it's a novelty beer because it's got mulberries and it's got graham crackers in it, but it's not. It's a really good and tasty beer that I would have. Maybe not a whole pint because I'm assuming it's a big beer.
Yes, it is.
But I would certainly have a full serving of this and be, and I think Susan, my wife, would like it as well. So Brian, what do you think of this?
It tastes better after the hot dog beer for sure. It's a dessert beer. It was designed as a dessert beer, and after having it as a hot dog, yeah, it's good. It's good.
Yeah, this is delicious. So so tell us about the beer.
Okay, basically, this beer was designed by Brian. Brian.
So should Brian tell us about this beer?
Well, Brian can tell you about the beer. Here's the recipe, and he'll tell you all about it.
So basically, I got a buddy that had a house with a couple of mulberry trees. He said, "Hey, you want to brew a beer with mulberries?" I said, "I've never had a mulberry, but let's try it." So my thought process was add graham crackers, add vanilla, we'll have a dessert stout. The basic recipe was designed after the Homebrew Con winner for Imperial Stout last year. That was published in the magazine, kind of took that recipe, tweaked it a little bit to what we could get here, and that was what we worked off of.
So did you add the mulberries in the secondary, or how did you approach those?
Mulberries were definitely added in secondary. It was a 5-gallon batch. We worked with 5 pounds of mulberries. It rested on that, along with 5 vanilla beans.
Boil.
A 3-hour boil.
Yep. Wanted to have
Steve, they stole your ginger joke.
I gotta do it.
Yeah, but there's a couple of Gilligans in there, I tell you that.
So how did you handle the graham cracker?
It was just basically grabbing a box from the store, kind of crushed them up, and just working that into the malt, throwing that into to make the wort.
So it's into the mash before the wort.
Exactly.
Wow, but I still get the graham cracker character. It wasn't boiled away.
Yeah, no, I think next time we do it, though, I'll probably do 2 boxes instead of 1. I want a little bit more pronounced graham cracker flavor, but it's there faintly.
I think it's great.
The thing I love about the vanilla use is that it doesn't stick out as vanilla. It just kind of enhances the chocolate notes of the malt, and I love that in a beer. You really do.
Yeah, I think again, you guys, you're a good team, Ken.
Oh, I enjoy working with Brian. We've gone through maybe 80 or 90 brews so far. We've been doing it for 8 years, and I've only made 3 or 4 beers without him. He's my right-hand guy. He keeps me in line. He sometimes tells me, "Dad, that's too wacky. Don't do it." And he's also the muscle. If we're making a big batch and I got to lift that grain bag up, I'm 70 years old. I can't do it. Brian handles everything perfectly.
That's got to be quite a gift. No, I'm seriously. I mean, if I had brewed with my dad for, I would consider that a gift to me.
Oh, sure. No, it is a great hobby to be able to share with him. Absolutely.
This has been even if we weren't going to the Brewfest tomorrow, this would have been worth the trip this evening. And the day with Greg and Alex. Alex she is smart. She has disappeared from within range of the microphone. But Greg, thank you so much for coming. Well, I mean, you would have come up anyway, but thanks for including us in all this.
Oh man, it's been cool to hang out. It's nice. Last time I saw you, we didn't really get to talk much. It was busy. It was the Homebrew Con in New Zealand, and you had way too many fans. So
I don't know about that. But Steve, thanks for coming with me.
It was a great weekend. Can't wait for the rest of it.
Nancy, it was really good to meet you, and thanks for serving as a homebrew store owner and for helping your homebrew community.
My pleasure. This is the funnest part of the job, is you actually get to, talk to people and help them make recipes. I mean, that's what I'm here for.
And Brian, thank you so much for spending time with us and hanging out with your dad and making dang good beer.
Absolutely. Cheers.
And Ken, thank you so much. We hope to see you tomorrow.
Oh, definitely. And it was an honor again meeting you. I enjoy your company, you and Steve.
Yeah, this is amazing, and it's all of this camaraderie and companionship, and it all came from you walking up on us at HomebrewCon and starting this whole thing. So
yeah,
this
Shanghai in you. I go, there he is, Brian, grab the beer. Let's see what they think.
But it's one of my favorite things about this weird, wacky thing that we're doing is the accidental, companionship and friendship, and it all builds year upon year, and best wishes to you, and good health and good brewing.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Well, thanks again to Ken, Brian, Nancy, Greg, Doug, Alex in the background, and of course Steve. The next morning I woke up and my voice was almost gone. However, I recovered enough to talk to people at the Ballpark Brewfest in Schaumburg, and you'll hear that show in a couple of weeks. We just had a blast in Chicago, and many thanks to our sponsors and to you financial supporters for making that happen. Yesterday, by the way, I got a very kind note from Ken. Ken says, I want to thank you for the enjoyable and memorable get-together. All of you provided Brian and me with a down-to-earth, fabulous beer-inspired weekend. I'd like to let you know that Sunday, Brian gave me a wonderful birthday present. It's a freshly dumped 15-gallon barrel that held a rye whiskey. It looks like we will have a very long weekend in the near future. We'll be brewing a Russian Imperial Stout. It will be quite an undertaking, and I'm really looking forward to it. Wow. Happy birthday, Ken. I know that that's going to be a delicious beer, and I hope that we'll be able to get together again soon. What great folks. In the meantime, if you have brewing questions, show suggestions, or just want to say howdy, write to james@basicbrewing.com or just fill out the contact form at basicbrewing.com. And please don't forget to tell us where you're from. Check out our mobile-friendly shop at basicbrewingshop.com. Thanks to everybody supporting us through our Patreon page. Special goodies coming your way. Check that out at patreon.com/basicbrewing. So until next time, until then, thanks for listening, everybody. I'm James Spencer. Production help for Basic Brewing Radio and our website is provided by Kelly Dotson. Basic Brewing Radio is a production of Active Voicing. We'll talk to you next time, everybody. In the meantime, stay well and stay tuned. So long.